Austin here with another metaphor analysis. This one's been sent in by Dolph. I shall read the description and then go through this diagram that I've drawn up here. Right, he writes, the person is standing in a crossroad. One is a path to a negative place and the other is to a positive place. In front is an underground rail lever or handle. To the left is a train that represents freedom and always goes to and ends up in the negative place. So it's a train to freedom that goes to the negative place. The client steps on the train when he realizes he can't walk himself. To the right is a bag with clothes and tools. Behind is darkness and he's standing on a conveyor. When I saw this, all I could think was, well, Dov, good luck with this one. This is going to be one of those very, very challenging clients. Not a challenging metaphor, but it is a challenging client for a number of reasons, and that's what I'll go through with you. My reasoning why I see certain things and what I'm seeing within this particular metaphor. Now, the person has gone into metaphor and has given a description of what that element of metaphor symbolizes for them. And for them, that will be true. But of course, it's very, very selective. They're saying that the path that goes off to the left is the negative place. The path that goes to the right is the positive place. So they're at this fork in this kind of, not quite a crossroads, but it's a fork in the road. The implication here from the client is that the going left is bad because that's negative. Therefore, this has got to be good. Oh no, but the train, which would be the train to freedom, only goes to the negative place. So they presented a nice little bind for the therapist to try and get through. So let's just go through the diagram here. So this is the conveyor the person is standing on. I'm guessing the conveyor then goes into the road. What I would want to know is what is at the juncture between conveyor and not conveyor. So basically, where does the conveyor end, and what happens? Where does that meet? And then what do we get? So basically, if this is a road here, what sort of road is it? Different types of road. They could be tarmac road. So it's basically well built, ready for passage. Could be a well-trodden path. It's a path that has only existed because everybody walks it. It could be a dirt road, so it's not a maintained road, but it's an implied road. And there's lots of variations here. It could be a gravelly road, it could be a smooth road, and so forth. The quality of the road gives a lot away. For example, if I'm on a tarmacked road, but I'm walking, okay, there's a question there. Why are you walking in the road? If it's a gravelly road, then every step they take is going to draw attention to themselves because it'll make noise. There's lots of variables and little nuances that you can find out by the quality of the path. This is very much the Metaphors of Movement Level 3 stuff, where we look in these sort of things a little bit more in depth. The fork in the road implies a choice between two things. And it's almost like, well, you must choose this one or choose this one. Of course, the positive place is on the right because that's the right way to go. The negative place is left because it's not right. Now, I'm aware that this has come from a native Hebrew speaker, so we may not have those idioms translate directly across. However, what we do find is left tends to be not right, and right often is the correct thing, even if the idiomatic implications of that are not supported within the language. Interestingly, straight on, there's an underground rail lever. Don't know what that is. I'm absolutely no idea. I'd have to get more data on that one. But why is the person on the path, on the road? What is the terrain outside of that? Because if they're stuck on this path, they stay on that path, then it implies they have to make a choice between those two things. But what if they refuse the choice altogether and choose a different way forward? So they could go forward here or up here, but no, they have to go here. And the conveyor, I'm assuming, only forms a portion of this road. This means they get to move forwards by standing still. They get to be carried. They are conveyed. They convey themselves. Their self is conveyed. And what is it conveyed to? Normally we try and convey ourselves to other people. We convey a meaning. We convey something. But ultimately, this is an individual who gets to stand still, do nothing, and yet change their position. I'm going to say that to you again. They get to stand still and do nothing, and yet they change their position. So this is the person who may well be quite argumentative and tell you one thing in one breath, and then a few minutes later contradict themselves without awareness of the self-contradiction. They may deny anything that they had said as a point of position previously because they're now in a different position. But you never notice the change because they visibly aren't changing, but their position is changing, changing all the time. This is a person who now, were they to take steps themselves, they take steps left. So this left is what is available to explore, to the train that takes them to freedom. There's a lot of stuff around train and training. That does seem to come up quite a lot. It's not like, oh, trains mean it's a training issue, but it is an issue around train. Now, often this does seem to reflect an educational component, but it's not necessarily going to be that. As a mode of transport metaphor, of course, you should recognize that this is largely going to be about occupation, work, employment, that kind of thing. My suggestion here would be that the thing that they're going to train in isn't something that they view to be a positive thing. It may not be something they want to do. But a train goes a lot further and a lot faster than standing on a conveyor. Here's one of the things that my own personal little irritations. I travel a lot for work. I go overseas to teach. And so I spend a lot of time moving through airports and waiting in airports. And I get fascinated by herd behaviors of people. People who are in a very crowded place, but are incapable of looking in the crowded place to pay attention to other people. They're fixated on their phone. They're fixated on playing a game, right? Whatever they're doing, as they're moving through a crowd of people. Completely oblivious to the problems they're causing for everyone else who has to go around them. The other one is the travelators, so these moving floors. The idea is, because some of the departure gates are so far away, to accelerate transport from one place to another and to reduce the effort it takes to get there. The floor moves and it will carry you along. Well, generally the idea is you walk on those things, but some people don't. They will be carried, and they're moving slower than my walking speed. And yet they'll stand still and wait to be carried along the travelator. And then you get those that do it in small groups. And they have their luggage to the side of them as they stand chatting, completely unaware. There's no one in front of them because everyone else has walked on. And there's all the people queued up on the travelator behind them. And too many people are too polite to tell them to get out of the way. Why do they do that? I used to see the same thing at the hospital. Years back when I worked at the hospital, there were 4 floors to the hospital. And it wasn't difficult to go up and down a flight of stairs, yet the majority of visitors to the hospital would stand and wait for the elevator, even though they could have just got up the stairs or down the stairs. And people would go up 1 floor. And it just amazes me that when people are given an opportunity to do nothing, they choose to do nothing. Another example of this in the training room. You set an exercise for people, give them 20 minutes, they complete the exercise in 5 minutes, and they spend the next 15 minutes talking, just chatting and wasting time, when they could have done the exercise another 4 times. This, for me, starts to build up a picture of the personality of this person. This is not a proactive individual. This is a person who, when given the opportunity to stand still and do nothing, will stand still and do nothing. But this is running out. I'm guessing this will only take them so far when they now have to make a choice. They have to make a choice between 2 things as far as they're concerned, but they've not bothered to explore the environment. They haven't explored what's outside of this, what's further left, what's further right for them. Do they know what's right? Sure, they got some tools and some cloth or clothes that are right for them, but do they know what else is right? Do they know the right path to go? Oh, yes, that one there, isn't it? Because that's the inevitable thing that's connected to this. Is it? There might be better ways to go. What about going straight on? What is it they look forward to? What they look forward to is an underground rail lever. That's what he looks forward to, an underground rail lever. What's right in front of them? Well, it's the path that goes the right way forwards. What's been left in front of them? Well, it's the path forward that's left. What's left for this person? Well, it's a train opportunity. And what's right for them? Well, it's some tools. What do? They stand still, and they're conveyed. that's the picture I get of the individual. So now within that, of course, how do I convey things to them that's going to enable them to take steps? Because when given the opportunity to not take steps, they don't take steps. Let's just go back to the description. To the left is a train that represents freedom and always goes to and ends up in the negative place. The client steps on the train when he realizes he can't walk himself. Why can't he walk himself? So again, there's more data we require here. What is it that prevents him from taking steps himself? Why can't he walk? It could be, of course, he's on a road and you're not supposed to walk on the road. You're supposed to walk on the pavement. You're supposed to stay to the path. You maybe not have a path at all and explore things yourself. So these are the kind of things that I'm going to have in mind, and I'm going to be checking against the demeanor and delivery of self that the client represents. Then we also have the issue of darkness in the background. So I know this is a person with a Hertz bias, so they're going to have a high level of creativity, high level of sensitivity, and be very empathic. So this is a person who also is high probability they are misunderstood by their family. For those who are unfamiliar with the Hertz bias, go to the Metaphors of Movement website. I'll put a link below to it, and the essay that I wrote on the Hertz bias, and it outlines what this is all about and the personality traits that are accompanied by darkness and vice versa. So when darkness is in the metaphor, we know it's a Hertz bias. So the travelator, the moving floor, the conveyor, has moved them out of the darkness, and the darkness is now in the background. So things for them will be brightening up, but they've come out of the dark and they're now facing a choice. I suspect they're not a proactive person. They don't like to make choices. Now, some people make choices passively, and you'll see this quite often in relationships, especially when people are in pain. So some people, rather than just simply go, okay, this relationship is not working, I'm going to do something about it, either try and fix it or get out. Some people won't do that. What they'll do is they'll render themselves obnoxious and unlikable to their partner. So the partner leaves them. Now they get to say, well, I didn't break up the relationship. They left me. And I don't know why. They had issues. So people can passively end a relationship by essentially forcing the other person to make the decision themselves rather than take responsibility for themselves. And we'll see this as well when people have pain issues, whether it's emotional pain, psychological pain, or physical pain. Some people won't do anything about it because the action of doing something about it renders them to feel guilty. For example, a patient in a hospital who is suffering pain, the nurses are terribly, terribly busy, and he feels guilty to ask the nurses for something, so he doesn't ask. And what he'll do is he'll wait until the pain has increased a sufficient level that the pain now outweighs the guilt he would feel for asking for help. So they can only act when the stimulus is sufficiently bad and worse than the alternative. Now we can start to look at, is this person a towards person or away from person in terms of meta-program issues? Now, whilst they're obviously moving towards, they're only moving towards passively. And I would wonder if the only reason they're moving forwards passively is to move away from the darkness in the background. So this is a person who may not have dealt with the background issues, of which are very much in the dark. They may not share it with you if you're working with the person, but has passively allowed themselves to be conveyed out of that. Now faces a choice and isn't making the choice, or refusing the choice altogether. When presented two options, people often get stuck in the thing of this or this. Well, how about refusing the choice altogether and doing something else outside of that frame? Once people are presented a frame, they tend to choose within the frame. And so you see this a lot as well when people are victimized. People are controlled by another person. They try and work within the choices the other person gives them. Well, how about stepping outside of that entirely and changing the rules, changing the game entirely? I don't think this is an individual who's likely to do that. So that's all I've got with this one, really. I would need to get much more data, and the data I would want to know is, most importantly, what happens when the conveyor, the travelator thing, meets not travelator, and what are the qualities of this path here? And more importantly as well, what is the quality of the stuff outside of the road of the path? If you've got any additional stuff you can spot with this, anything else to add to this, do please put it in the comment section below. I'm always interested. One of the things I've recognized is that when it comes to metaphor, it's so information dense, and people have their own biases for what they can see. When I post these things up, people post things I would never have considered in a million years, and yet fits perfectly. And especially when you have people from different cultural backgrounds as well, because there's different inherent biases there. So stick those in the comment section, because I will be very interested to see what else you've got. One thing that just occurs to me, the train. Is it on track? Is it on tracks? The train is mentioned, but is there a path? Or what is the train on, basically? Is it on track or not? And so there's, again, additional details I'd want to get there as well.
cái đèo dừng kìa.